All right. 1, 2. Is it okay? Hello. Hi.
Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, let's settle in. We are going to be starting in a few minutes. Welcome to the launch of the strategic plan for 2020 to 2024. Just find out for me that the person you're seated next to came here for Katiba. If they came here for somewhere, another event, we could just direct them to the proper event. Just find out they're here for Katiba Institute. If they're here for Save the World from Hunger, we'll direct them to another meeting room. We're going to be starting shortly. Thank you. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Let's do that very Kenyan thing. If you can see me, wave at me. It's a very Kenyan thing, huh? All right, good stuff. Welcome to the launch of this strategic plan for 2020 to 2024. I had asked earlier, are you sure you're in the right location? I know this, the Pan-Africa, we have many meeting rooms. I just need you to be sure, find out from your neighbor there as you're seated, are you here for Katiba Institute? And if the answer is negative, we have a team that will quickly show you to the proper place you need to be in. Wonderful, it's good to see you. We're going to be getting to know each other shortly. And it's my hope that you actually know everyone who's seated at your table and the organization that they come from. So let me give us just a minute. Just around the table you are, why don't you just share who you are and you know where you're from or where you work and how you know Katiba. Those three things, all right? Just in the table that you're in. Who are you? Where do you work? And how do you connect or know Katiba? Let's go. All right. Are you satisfied with the answers that have been given to you? You're satisfied? All right, good. I'd like to call the meeting to order and I'll invite us to rise for the national anthem. And then we'll also still be upstanding for the East African anthem as well. And then I'll invite you to take your seat as we move the program from there. Please rise for the national anthem. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That felt like a very 90s moment, huh? Please have your seat. Asanteni sana. My name is James Wanjeri. I am an advocate of the High Court, but before I became an advocate, a few years ago in 2016, Katiba Institute gave me an opportunity to undertake my letters of pupillage with the organization. So that is a background that I have, and I was with Katiba, I believe, until late 2017. So it gives me great pleasure and also just great honor to have been given the opportunity to lead our program this morning. Thank you. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you on behalf of Katiba Institute. Thank you for honoring the invite. And I'd also like to welcome our online audience, those that are watching us on Zoom. Karibuni sana. All right, just a few housekeeping rules before we begin the program. You are encouraged to please have your mask on at all times. In this room are people who make very serious decisions in this country and in the world. We do not want to put any of their lives at risk, okay? We'd be putting the world at risk. So please have your mask on at all times. We have sanitizers. If you'd like to sanitize your hands, we have those even at the entrance, and you'll be able to use that. All right. Katiba Institute is 11 years old. And I'd like to bring to us the Executive Director, Ms. Christine Konge, to come and give her opening remarks, and also just maybe give us a little history about Katiba and how we've got to where we are today. Let's appreciate Christine as she comes, please.
For this launch, we will be sharing our short-term vision of where we would like Kenya's democracy, state of human rights, devolution, and environmental justice to be. thereby not only holding ourselves accountable for the resources we receive to realize this vision, but also seeking your partnership and collaboration in that endeavor. So we at KI have been on an exciting, sometimes difficult and tiring, but always fulfilling journey for the last 10 years. The idea of Katiba Institute was birthed sometime in 2010 in a cafe in Ontario, Canada, by Professors Yashpal Gai, Jill Cottrell Gai, and Waiko Wanyoike. So the Institute was set up the year after, around March 2011, and was formally registered as a company limited by guarantee in June 2012. In its infancy, the Institute was incubated for 3 years at Akiba Uhaki Foundation, AUF, as a project of AUF, before it set off to operate on its own in December 2013. I can hear myself. Okay. You okay now? Okay. The Institute began with a staff of 3, and now we have grown to a staff of 18. The Institute's board of directors are currently 6. Apart from the guys, we have Father Gabriel Dolan, John C.B. Okumu, Dr. Linda Musumba, and retired Chief Justice, Dr. Willie Mutunga. Abdullah Bujra and the retired Chief Justice of Tanzania, Barnabas Samata, were previous members of the KI board. KI over the years has grown to a small publishing house. We have published about 20 books. This year alone, we'll be publishing about 6, and contributed to papers and chapters in a myriad of publications. In our research work, we have partnered with various academic and research institutions, too many to name here, as we believe in a multidisciplinary approach to our work. In our endeavor to create awareness and build capacities, we have trained judicial officers, community groups, civil society members, national and county level officials, and journalists. We have also trained and worked with over 50 interns, fellows, and volunteers. We routinely engage in review of proposed laws and policies to promote their compliance with the Constitution. At last but not least, we have litigated over 150 cases in the 10 years in varying capacities, such as petitioners, interested parties, amicus curiae, legal representatives, or even as legal consultants. We've had a success rate of about 75% with our court litigation. All of these activities and initiatives could not be done without the support of our development partners, such as Ford Foundation, Open Society Justice Initiative for Eastern Africa, Luminate Group, American Jewish World Service, Hewlett Foundation, Diaconia, and several other partners. So this is a snapshot of our work over the last 10 years, and we are excited for the journey ahead. Those gathered here today have been our friends, our partners, and financiers, and we truly appreciate your support, without which KI would not be what it is today. Let's continue working together to ensure Kenya is a just and equitable society founded on constitutionalism. So thank you so much. So those are my brief welcoming remarks. Before I introduce the chairperson of our board to give her opening remarks, I'd like to recognize the presence of George Kegoro, the director of the Open Society Initiatives for Eastern Africa, and a close friend and partner of KI over the various capacities he's held over the years. Unless, George, maybe you just want to say 1 or 2 things, where I bring the mic where you sit.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I'm just simply honored to be here and to be celebrating what has been really an amazing journey and a labor of love for Yash, Jill, and the Waikwa, who have done so much of the heavy lifting that has brought us to this moment. also celebrating the board that has been simply visionary in the way that this organization has evolved, and to also recognize and honor you, Christine, who is continuing to carry the vision of the founders very, very ably. What happens over time is that the vision can be devalued or can drift, but in your hands, I've seen that there's huge consistency and a huge amount of new energy that has been brought in time. And so in the current, the organization is in very safe hands. Amazing what of active citizenship, real meaning, giving the idea that through the instruments and tools that the Constitution has given us, we can have real power in our own hands and have what looks like a feeble opportunity, but has ultimate chance of standing up and speaking truth to power. So really for me and for Osia, who has been a partner of Katiba for this period, and also in my relationships that I've had before with Katiba, my presence here is just to say thank you very much and to encourage you and to congratulate you on this milestone, and to say that we'll continue working together, and to also recognize my friend and the brother Abdul for what they're also doing, because this field has the harvest is much, but the reapers are few. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. So I just decided to have George say a few remarks because he has to leave at 10. And we thank you for those remarks, George. So I will go back and introduce the chairperson of our board. Those gathered here, of course, know her very well. Jill Kotrelgai is fully retired from law teaching in 2006 after 40 years. She first taught in Nigeria, then in the United Kingdom, and finally in Hong Kong. She taught human rights in the last few years of her tenure, but her interest in constitutional law really took off after the so-called retirement. She was involved in constitutional processes as a consultant in East Timor, Maldives, Nepal, Libya, and on Somalia. She was, with Yash Gai and Waikwa Wanyoike, a founder of Katiba Institute, now as well chairing its board of directors. She's a volunteer editor and writer for the organization. Karibu, Jill.
Well, first of all, welcome. Welcome particularly, well, welcome to everybody, including those who are here virtually. But I particularly want to notice that I think this is the first event of this sort that we have held in the last 18 months. And it's really something to notice in this strange world in which it's so difficult to recognize all these people. George kindly made sure that we knew who he was. And then I heard James's voice and I said, I know that voice. But I wasn't sure I was right until I looked at the program. It is a very peculiar thing, but what a pleasure to be here with real people on such an occasion. And let me say welcome to friends, everybody, of Katiba Institute. I hope everyone is a friend of Katiba Institute, and that other speakers are doing all the strictly observing of protocol. I'm never very good at it. So, and just in the case of those who are here physically, congratulations on making it through your strengths, your commitment to come. Despite a weakness, I don't think you have them, but maybe your tolerance or intolerance of traffic jams. The threats, we encountered 2 accidents and perhaps distinguished visitors on our way here. And finally, the opportunity of the schools closing down, so there perhaps a little bit less traffic in some places. Sorry about this, but I've never fully come to terms with this whole strategic plan stuff. It's just we're here, if you like, to launch this document, which is a sort of ritual, isn't it? It's something that requires us and other organizations represented here to squeeze our visions and our language into boxes. It is a peculiar, in the end, probably valuable. It makes us think, it makes us plan, but in many ways a very frustrating activity. I remember Yash and I had to do this for a unit we were heading in, or Yash was heading in Kathmandu, on constitution making advisory, constitution advisory support unit, and submitting it to the headquarters of UNDP in New York to get all sorts of ignorant comments back from people who knew absolutely nothing about Nepal. We have not encountered such frustrations, I have to say. But having raised this about squeezing our vision, let me say something about the vision of Katiba Institute. The original vision was really Yash's. And Yash, would you be good enough to stand up and just say hello to everybody? Thank you. His original, the idea of Katiba Institute came about because of Yash's sense of a threat to the Constitution. And this was at a time when we didn't even know whether we'd even get a Constitution. There was, after all, that period from 2004, when the Bomas conference came to an end. The government seized the Constitution, changed it, turned it in what was often cynically described as the Wako draft, submitted it to the people, and it was rejected in 2005. And then nothing for a while. It was peculiar because the government was constantly saying, when it made reports to international human rights bodies, oh, Kenya is going to have a new constitution and it's going to be full of human rights stuff. But they weren't doing anything very active about it until we were precipitated by the terrible events of 2007, 2008. But even before that, in 2004, Yash had come to realize, as a result of what, in many ways, was a nightmare of a process for him between 2000 and 2004. A nightmare, particularly because of the lack of enthusiasm, to put it mildly, of many politicians for the whole idea of a new constitution. And he came to realize if we did get a new good constitution, and a good constitution would mean something which constrained government, it would, of course, inevitably get a great deal of resistance. It has to be said that the opportunity was very much presented by the Ford Foundation, the source of our first grant. And the vision that we had, Karibu Dr. Musumba, the vision that we had, these days, actually, we would put it as the mission, right? You know, one has to have the vision statement, the mission statement. This is really the mission of Katiba. The vision is of a nation that, as Christine was just saying, a nation that is founded on the rule of law, constitutionalism, and justice. But our mission was of an organization that would be engaged in education, particularly, inspiration, I think, and litigation in support of the Constitution. And it would have an East African dimension. Litigation rather took a life of its own, hence the 150 cases that Christine just mentioned. And so perhaps latterly has publishing. I hadn't realized that we'd published as many as 20 things, and we're doing quite as many as 6 this year. But we do still retain, with the support of the board, and it's a wonderful board, of all the Asians, the education, the inspiration, as well as the litigation. And indeed, interestingly, even in the last, perhaps I should add to that, in support of all these activities, research. And even despite COVID-19, in the last, especially this year, we have been expanding some of our education activities and inspiration activities, I think, by holding some workshops, some of them along with the social justice movement, on sexual and gender-based violence and on women's leadership. And we've been carrying out a major research project, or a couple of major research projects this year. One with IDRC in Canada, one that's been going on for quite a long time, but is coming to an end now, which is on alternative approaches to access to justice, identifying those perhaps which could be the basis for scaling up, as the Canadians like to put it. And another one with the University of Cardiff, and 2 people are probably familiar to many here, Ambrina Manji and John Harrington, on the official response to COVID-19. And judged from a perspective of rule of law and constitutionality. And I gather that our report is getting to a point where I'm going to be exercising my editorial pen on it. We're also still committed to a Katiba Institute that is focused on the rights of the excluded and the voiceless, as well as in keeping those who are supposed to implement the Constitution on the straight and the narrow. That, if you like, in a sense, Yashi's original motivation. We also hope to strengthen the East African connection, not just by beginning meetings with the East African anthem, but in practical ways. The final thing I wanted to say is about the document which is being launched. It occurs to me that if you launch a document on the sea, it would sink. The idea of launching comes from launching ships. And now you're talking about launching a document, and it would be waterlogged and sink without trace. It seems slightly inappropriate. Anyway, what I wanted to say was, I was partly involved in this process. I attended virtually quite a number of meetings. And I just wanted to say how much thought and effort has gone into this on the part of the consultant and on the part of Katiba Institute staff. Conceptualizing, clarifying what it is we want to do, how we see ourselves over the next 5 years, arguing about words, How do we best express this? And I want to pay tribute to all the staff who devoted so much time, enthusiasm, and effort to this. And of course, thank you to them for the effort they're now putting into realization of that vision and this plan. Once again, Karibuni, virtually or present or physically, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Jill. There you go. I forgot you're 16. Right. Thank you very much. 150 cases. Could I just ask, which is the one case you remember the most? Anyone? Maybe in Kenya, so there'll be a gift for this. Which is one case you remember most by Katiba? Yes, Professor at the back.
I remember the latest
Huduma number case. All right. Any other case? Wow, guys. Yes. Muratetu. Yeah, that one was earth shaking. All right. Any other case? Guys, you have 148 to go. Okay. Yeah. Sorry? Lab set case. Yes. Sorry? Save Lamu as well, the call case. There's a table there that has said nothing. So you have 145 to go. Yes, Ben. Sorry? Recall, the recall petition. Yes.
Can I say twice?
Yes, of course. The more gifts you get. Sorry? Yeah, me too, Bell, of course, land rights. Yes. 2/3 gender and party list. Yes. Appointment of judges, yes. SRC case for allowances for parliamentarians. Yes, Jill. Muthura case. All right. Yes. Yes. We also went to court on the cabinet 2/3 gender rule as well. When the JSC tried, when Parliament tried to force, the President tried to force the JSC to forward 3 names, we were in court. And of course, Katiba was the first institution to file the case that challenged the highest number of laws in Kenya's history. And this is a case that challenged the appointments to government parastatals and boards. 150 with an almost 80% winning rate. Just clap for Katiba Institute. And I'd like to call to the stage Ms. Christine Kuria. Christine is the institutional program manager, and she's just going to be giving us her thoughts on this. I know she was heavily involved in the creation of this strategic plan. Let's appreciate her as she comes. And don't you just like the Katiba hoodies? You know? Thank you, Kristen.
All right. Thank you so much, James. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My task is brief yet long. I'm here to give you an overview of the strategic plan. Christine has talked about it. Jill has talked about it. And my role is just to give you an overview of the strategic plan. There's a lot that is in there that I will not cover. But it's because the idea is just to appetize you so that you can look forward to reading it. So as Jill mentioned, we engaged a consultant because much as you'll see later on, and one of the things we pride in is the skills, the in-house excellent team that we have. But one of the skills, unfortunately, we are yet to develop is on strategic planning development. So we engaged a consultant who helped us to walk through the process. So it was a co-creation process. We basically worked with partners. As Jill said, we also looked internally. We had time to reflect. We had time to analyze, time to consult. So the consultant was able to call on you, our partners, and ask you questions, to be frank, to be truthful. And we want to say thank you so much, because if you weren't frank, if you weren't truthful, we would not be here today. We would not know our strengths, we would not know our weaknesses or the opportunities we have ahead of us. So I just want to begin by saying thank you to our partners and the staff. Jill has already mentioned it. It was long, it was draining. Sometimes it would go past 6 o'clock, people are driving home, others are, it was a long process, but the staff continued to soldier on and build resiliency. The board involvement cannot be gainsaid. Jill was there with us throughout. The board also looked at the document, they gave their comments, and that is why they are here with us today. And of course, we were able to design and finally print the document, and that's why we are here today. I'll not repeat this, it's already been said. We know about Katiba. Jill has talked about its establishment and the idea of Katiba Institute being here to promote the understanding of the Constitution, to protect the Constitution, and to facilitate its implementation. And then our founding directors, Professor Yashpal Gai, Professor Jill Gai, and Waiko Wanyoike, who was our first executive director. So today, this is our second strategic plan. We had our first strategic plan 2014 to 2019, and this is our second strategic plan. Of course, our strategic plan looks at the management structure. So it talks about the board of directors who act as our sounding board for management, who ensure compliance with agreed values and strategies, and also they offer financial advice and oversee financial integrity. One of the things that makes Katiba strong is also because of the integrity of our board members. They are people of high repute, credible, and they have technical expertise. And that is why as Katiba Institute, we stand today because of the leadership we get based on the nature of the people that we have in our board. And we want to say thank you so much. We also have a senior management team that is involved with the day-to-day running, which basically comprises of heads of different departments. That's, Jill was talking about vision, mission. In our first strategic plan, our vision, one of the things that we did in the second strategic plan, based on the reflections we had, based on the time we took to ask ourselves, where are we going? Where have we come from? What have we learned? Is to further revise, is to further refine our vision, our mission, and also our slogan. So our vision in our first strategic plan was to achieve social transformation through the Constitution by promoting its implementation. You'll note that in the current one, we have further refined it. So it reads a just and equitable society founded on constitutionalism. So the gist of why we exist or where we are going doesn't change. All we've changed is the wording. Then our mission was to establish a culture of constitutionalism in our previous strategic plan. But in the current one, our current mission is to champion constitutionalism through research, public interest litigation, and promoting public participation. Then, of course, we have our slogan, which has changed, but we'll still be using both in the sense that we have Constitution as an instrument of change, which you come to know us by, and which we continue to use in our branding. But we've also included another one that says Constitution as an instrument for socio-economic transformation. Because we had, as Jill was saying, we had a discussion of what change, what is this change we are bringing? So we emphasized on it further. Then, of course, as Katiba, we are committed to the values of the Constitution. So issues of transparency, accountability, social justice, integrity, participation, equality and non-discrimination, and respect for human rights. Those are the values that guide us as Katiba Institute. So one of the things we did, and Christine has alluded to this, is in terms of some of our achievements. So I don't need to belabor when I talk about our landmark public interest litigation cases that promote openness and accountability. A lot has been said on our public interest litigation work, And what this has done is that it's contributed to enhancing the rule of law in Kenya, good governance, and social justice. Our second achievement that we pride in is regards to our extensive research and writing, and that also has been said, and of course it's on constitutional issues. And as a result of the nature of the work that we do, the thorough research that we do, the excellent work that we do in developing our books, our booklets, our manuals, and many other our legal opinions and other articles, is that our work has been cited in court judgments. It's also been cited by state institutions in policy development, media when they're elaborating their commentaries, and also civil society when they're developing civic education material. Other achievements has been, we've developed the capacity of the public and other institutions. So basically we've worked with institutions such as the Judiciary Training Institute. We've also trained members of the county assemblies, the CECs and civil society organization. And of course, as a result, we are all often called and consulted so that we can give our expertise and continue impacting on the lives of different people. Another achievement is that we have diversified our portfolio of both strategic and of both national and international partners. So as Jill mentioned about institutions such as IDRC and many other organizations that we've worked with inside and outside Kenya. And as a result, these partnerships have contributed towards ensuring a sustainable system level change. Then we've also been a frontline defense of human rights defenders because we believe that constitutional transformation is derived from community demand. And of course, as a result, there's been regular assistance to human rights defenders when they're arrested in the course of their work. Katiba Institute is there to assist. Looking inwards, we pride in the fact that we've also developed our in-house expertise. And because of that, as an institution, we have greater quality control. So the kind of work that we put out there is based on the fact that we are able to do the work in-house, we are able to do the research in-house. So we send out quality work. We've also institutionalized our expertise, and that's why we have, as James mentioned, a near 80% excellence when it comes to our cases. So we've received a couple awards. One of them is the Civil Society Legal Department of the Year Award in Public Interest Litigation, which we were awarded in 2017 by the Law Society of Kenya. And then one of our colleagues who has come in, Dudley Ochel, was, because of the work that he's been doing at Katiba Institute, he was awarded the Public Interest Jurist of the Year Award by the Law Society of Kenya and Amnesty International in 2018. That said, however, there are various lessons we have learned as an institution and which will inform our work going forward. One of them is that the need for civic engagement. We need to ensure that we have empowered the public with tools to be able to participate and monitor government compliance. Secondly, is that even if we are priding in a lot of public interest litigation, we've learned that much as PIL is necessary, it's not always sufficient to implement social change. So we need to bring in other actors, we need to bring in other tools. Those who are doing advocacy work, we need to work with such partners. We need to employ access to information as a tool. And then thirdly, we've also learned the need for collaborative programming. This is because we realize that as Katiba Institute, we cannot address all the problems that relate to constitutional and governance challenges. So we need to collaborate with other partners to be able to forge forward in addressing these challenges. Then when it comes, we also realize there's need for us to constructively engage with government while at the same time holding them accountable in order to influence social transformation. And then looking inwardly, we also learned that there is need for the leadership team to strengthen the positive organizational structure and to enhance resiliency internally. So we did our SWOT analysis. It's much longer than this. I've just highlighted one or two. Among the strengths, as I've already mentioned, is the highly skilled in-house team, the positive work environment and the teamwork that exists, the well-respected, well-recognized, and the goodwill that we receive as an institution. The weaknesses, inadequate profiling, and we want to thank you because this SWOT analysis was based on the feedback that you gave the consultant. And one of the things you told us that, yes, you're doing a lot of work, but you're not, it's not as visible out there. So you need to be more visible. And that is one of the things that we'll take on board, and we'll be seeing how to work on that weakness. And then, of course, insufficiently diversify in terms of our resource base, we need to diversify that. And then use of ICT resources and opportunities. And especially now with COVID, the need for ICT is really critical. Among the opportunities that we have is to enhance partnerships and engage with private sectors. Of course, there are some of these sectors like the private sector that we need to work more with. And of course, state organs, those we work with and others that we need to reach out to. Then the other opportunity that we have as Katiba Institute is to be the go-to institution on constitutional matters. And then social capital, we have our founders, our board, we have that as an opportunity for us to leverage on. Among the threats, and I believe these are not unique to Katiba Institute alone, is disruptive politics and elections, shifting donor priorities and reduced funding, and especially when it comes to issues relating to governance and rule of law, and of course, closing civic space and human rights violation. So in terms of looking forward, and as I said, there's a lot more in terms of our SWOT analysis. If you look inside, you'll be able to see that. So in terms of looking forward, we also assessed our operating context. What is the context that we are operating in, even as we move forward? And one of the things that you'll notice that when we were analyzing our operating context, we were also bearing in mind the strategies that we shall use going forward. So you'll see a lot of this relate to the strategies, and I'll speak to the strategies two slides after this. So one of the operating contexts is that, yes, a lot has been done insofar as realizing national values and principles, such as enactment of laws, but there are still challenges that exist. So there's weak implementation of these laws, there's failure to develop a culture of constitutionalism, corruption, poor governance, political instability, and I'm sure you can mention many others. When it comes to devolution matters, it has had its positive effects, including bringing the government closer to the people. There are many, many challenges that continue to bedevil devolution, including irregular or delayed disbursement of funds, yet again corruption, weak monitoring system, and then of course limited access to information and ineffective public participation. And then of course, when it comes to fundamental rights, we know these are stipulated in Chapter 4 of the Constitution, and laws have been enacted, but then of course there are various other challenges, such as violation of rights by security officers and other state organs, failure to realize, fully realize socioeconomic rights as stipulated in Article 43, challenges relating to access to justice, especially for the ordinary mwananchi, judicial independence, and compliance, failure to comply with court orders. So those are some of the challenges that we continue to work with, and we are working under, and we'll continue to work under, and we need to bear in mind as we move forward. Of course, and then of course the final one is Kenya's vulnerability when it comes to climate change, and being that most of the economic drivers are sensitive to climate-related issues such as agriculture, fisheries, and others that we've stipulated in our strategic plan. So our theory of change has not changed, because we believe that full implementation of Kenya's constitution can address the underlying systems, structures, and norms that restrict people's access to rights, opportunities, choices, and agency. So for us, it's about implement the constitution, because if you implement the constitution, it will solve many of the challenges that I've mentioned, including corruption, violence, tribalism, and many others. So in terms of our strategies that we shall employ, These are the four program pillars or strategies that Katiba Institute will be working with. One is good governance, focusing on rule of law, integrity, and accountability. Then we'll also focus on devolution. We'll focus on rights and fundamental freedoms, environmental justice, natural resource governance, and climate change. And finally, of course, organizational excellence, because we also need to look internally. Just an overview of what we'll be looking at when it comes to these pillars, 5 pillars. When it comes to good governance, our objective is to ensure good governance, accountability, and efficiency in public service delivery. So some of the outcomes that we want to see is improved legal policy and institutional frameworks, strengthened state transparency and accountability, and many others. And in terms of the priority interventions, and I just want to say I picked 1 or 2. There are many other interventions that we'll be working with, and I welcome you to read through our strategic plan when you receive it, and as partners, see where we can engage together. So in terms of the priority interventions, some of them, when it comes to good governance, is supporting implementation of the Constitution by monitoring and reporting the extent to which state and non-state actors are complying with their mandates, and then periodically conducting and sharing analysis or research findings on emerging constitutional issues in order to inform how people think about the Constitution. Then when it comes to devolution, our objective is to strengthen and safeguard devolution, for responsive democracy, citizen engagement, and enhanced delivery of public services. So among the outcomes we'll be looking at is to increase engagement in and oversight of devolved governance, fuller achievement of devolution as envisaged in the Constitution. And then among the priority interventions is to develop a strategy. We'll be developing a strategy on how to engage with county and national government in order to strengthen our work in devolution. We'll undertake periodic audits of implementation of devolution, and also will advocate for equitable, timely, and adequate allocation of resources to counties. When it comes to rights and fundamental freedoms, our objective is to enhance the preservation of human dignity, equality, well-being, and self-fulfillment. So among the expected outcomes is an enhanced culture of respect, promotion and protection of human rights. We also want to see increased awareness of human rights and public demand for human rights protection. And then among the priority interventions that we'll be working in is to enhance public participation in civic affairs, including policy formulation, develop capacity of civil society organization and grassroots movements such as social justice centers, which Jill made reference to, in order so as to protect and demand rights and freedoms, and then to support actions and mechanisms to ensure the security and well-being of human rights defenders, whistleblowers, and anti-corruption activists. When it comes to our 4th pillar, on environmental justice, our objective is to contribute to efficient, effective, and accountable management of natural resources that is sustainable and directly benefits the lives of all. So in terms of expected outcomes is to enhance accountability for management of natural resources and increased awareness on policies and legislation. Priority interventions is to support community mobilization and participation in initiatives that enhance access to rights and development of natural resources, engage in public interest litigation for effective environmental protection, and to collaboratively promote transparency and accountability in the extractive sector. One of the things you'll note is that our environmental justice pillar was not in our previous strategic plan, but we continue to do a lot of work, and this time round we have elevated it so that we can so that the work that we've been doing continues and is more enhanced. Then finally, when it comes to our 5th pillar on institutional well-being, that's of course looking inward. Our objective is to enable Katiba Institute to discharge its mandate effectively and sustainably. Our expected outcomes is to consistently deliver high quality services, to develop a diverse, sustainable, and stable financial resource portfolio, to attract and retain high quality staff. And then in terms of our intervention, we want to analyze our funding environment in order to develop a resource mobilization strategy to enhance donor understanding of KI's work and add value, and as well as to how to align our work to the donor goals, and then to strengthen organizational systems and our structures in order to ensure that we are managing risk accordingly. Then, in terms of our implementation modalities, you'll see in our strategic plan is that we have, of course, monitoring and evaluation is key to us. So we have made mention to our monitoring, evaluation, and research and learning, and we are in the process of developing a handbook on monitoring and evaluation, but also we'll be regularly monitoring the process. We'll be internally, we'll be monitoring the processes so that we are ensuring that we're ensuring that we are adhering to what our strategic plan provides. And then, of course, you'll see our organizational structure and our budget overview for 2020-2024. And then finally, one of the good things that comes with the new strategic plan is a new physical address. I know many of you know us, our former address in Hurlingham, but we've now moved to number 5, house number 5, the Crescent, which is off Parklands Road, but the rest of our details do not change. So our post office box, our telephone number, our email, and our website, and we welcome you to access all these publications as well as the work that we've done on our website. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. You know, Christine and I come from that part of the country where if you are told to say parallelogram 3 times to earn 1 million shillings, you are not getting the 1 million shillings, for sure. Let's appreciate her one more time. It's good to see the past 11 years, and it looks like the next 11 are going to be bigger and better. At this point in time, I'd like to invite us to take our tea break. We will be served from my right, which will be your left. You can exit through that door. And then we'll come back at 11 and continue right where we left off. Is that okay? Thank you very much. I think, Jill, now you have an opportunity to see people's faces when they're having their tea because they won't be wearing their masks. Thank you, guys.
Yes. Sana, sawa. Ingia na huko nyuma. Imagine sioni Windows full. Sasa imagine nimetoa hii screen, hii OBS haionekani kwa hii screen. Kwa hii screen ni kikubwa like ikiwezi fit kwa hii screen. Asiwezi cancel hii kitu. Sasa anatumia hii ku project ndio shida kubwa. Nataka nicheze hii kwanza. Nacheza zote mbili. Nini? Oh, acha baadaye ni confirm. Watu wasione hao.
Minutes, get another call from the registrar of the University College of Nairobi. And he said, we have cancelled your contract. I said, you can't do that. You know, it's a long process, lot of interviews, lot of candidates, and now you tell me you have cancelled it. On what basis? Oh, I can't tell you, I can't tell you. I'll tell you one day, I can't tell you.
You know, Charles Njonjo and others, you know, stopped it because they thought he was very radical, and he had written this book in '69, which was critical of Kenya's constitution and, you know, public law generally.
Anyway, the result was that I left East Africa, and for very many years, because people kept on saying, don't come, don't come. Though I suppose after a number of years I probably could have come. But there was so much nastiness in this country then. People were being killed, people were being imprisoned for nothing.
My introduction of Professor Guy was just through public information, one as a law professor, and just initially just reading the books he had written, so mostly as a scholar. Then of course when he got involved in the Kenyan constitution making process back in 1999, I think.
There were two parallel processes then. One that was led by Raila Odinga, and the other one that was the Ufungamano one, which was chaired by the late Oko Mbaka. So Yash Guy was able to, you know, bring the two together, and that's how you had a united front to the you know, the Bomas draft.
I traveled, as you know, not all of us traveled, the commission, around the country, talking to people, listening to them. First time we went quick tour, saying who we were, why we had come, what we were doing, and saying, okay, now you have 2-3 months, we are going to come back. But this time, I don't talk, you talk. You tell us what kind of constitution you want.
But the first time I ever came to Kilifi was to go to a meeting, a really large meeting, inland. We drove from around here for a couple of hours, I think, to get to a meeting where there were 600 people very enthusiastic about the whole process of the constitution and making their contributions. So in that sense I was watching the process.
There are people who may say the 2010 constitution was not Yash Guy's constitution, was not the Bomas constitution. It was, some people may say it was committee of experts, but I would say 85 to 90% of
Yeah. I think, oh, okay, yeah, here. Is that okay? And the sound? I can hear you very well. Oh, okay.
Hello. Hey.
Yes.
Switch off the phone. Talk to us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you see the event?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can see the podium.
Okay.
Or the
Okay.
lantern, whatever
So
it is.
we are here with Kevin. So I think you can see us.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And we can hear you very clearly. So
Okay.
when the MC will be speaking, we'll be over there. Let me show you. Just a minute. We can't. Kuna kitu nimechange hapa.
So Oikwa,
Mm-hmm.
we'll just alert you in the next after the 2 activities.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's fine.
That's fine.
So and if anything, anyway, I'm on now and I'm not going anywhere. But if anything fails, I have my WhatsApp, and you have that.
Okay. Sawa. That's fine.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Shang'oa hiyo cable. Tunafanya nini? Tunaweka hii. Hii ndio tunaweza funga. Chui. Jinsi tunachukua hii. Unajua tunapaswa kufanya kitu before the break.
All right, it appears that we are all back. Did you enjoy your tea break? Yes? That was okay? Asanteni sana. We are going on with the program, but let me first ask before we call the next person who's coming on stage. Find out from your team members. I'm going to give you this 1 minute activity, okay? What one word would you use to describe Katiba Institute? Just discuss this on your table. What is the one word you'd use to describe Katiba Institute? And I'm going to be coming round to hear what the table decided, okay? You have 1 minute, go. For those of us working in, the question is, what one word would you use to describe Katiba Institute? All right, let me come around. I'm going to start with a table that refused to say anything earlier in the day. These are my guys here, way at the back, Emily and Tim. What's the word you've decided? Past tense. They've said past tense. The same word is persistent, okay? Persistent is a word on this side. Upper. Everyone has left this guy alone. It's not fair. Everyone has walked away. Jackson, what's the word you'd use? Magnificent, okay? That is a guy who knows his boss is here, okay? Okay, this table, what's the word? Proactive, okay, proactive. Kristen, I hope you're taking notes. This is what people think about you. This table, Evans, you've been pointed to. What's the one word you're using to describe Katiba? He says sorry. No? Tenacious, okay? Lawyers. Tenacious, okay? This is the table of the founders, okay? So I'm going to go easy on you guys, okay? Okay. What's the word? Boisterous, What's good? You just use that word somewhere and see what it will, the effects that you'll have, okay? This table, what's the word? Indefatigable. That's the word. No tire. I say no tire. You don't tire. Okay. 150 cases. The table of the master, the chief guest. What's the word? Brave. Okay. Now one final question for you guys. A man has 10 eggs. He cracks 2, cooks 2. How many eggs does he have left? Let's see which table gets it. A man has 10 eggs. He cracks 2. He cooks 2. How many eggs does he have left? Now you're going to own your answer. Okay, let's see. Emily on the table, what's the answer you've decided? 8. How many? 5. 10. 10, okay? The remain 10, okay? Next table. Lynn, that's your table. That's your table. What's the answer? 8, okay? Ogada at your table. What's the answer? 8. Okay, Jill, your table? 10, okay? 10. Mr. Indefatigable, what's 8, okay? 10. All right. Who do you think is right? To find out more on this, join us in 1 hour. I'm going to be giving you that answer later. Now, I'd like to invite to the stage Javan the poet. Now, Javan is a very interesting guy, and he's been very resourceful, especially for Katiba events, and we've just always loved having him along. This is a time where you take out your phone and you put a story on Instagram, or you put out a tweet. If you are tweeting, if you've taken photos, you can tweet at Katiba Institute, that's the handle. And the hashtag we're using today, we have 2 hashtags. The first one is KI looking forward. That's KI looking forward. Forward is FORWARD. The other hashtag is Katiba Institute at 11. The at is AT, okay? Katiba Institute at 11 and KI looking forward. The tweet with the most retweets will also have a gift for you. We might just, we might take on a case on your behalf. Because that's what we do. Ladies and gentlemen, please appreciate Javan as he comes on stage.
Good morning. How many afternoon? Good morning. This should be a very, very powerful session and day. I think we've come so far as people, as a community, and also as active citizens. My name is Javan the poet, and with me is Yani. We hope you enjoy.
Watoto wangu we, mimi baba ye, siniko na nguvu we, ya kumaliza corruption, inawaua kila siku, inawadhulumu, inawatesa kila siku, inawadhulumu, ila msilie, nimesikia shida zenyu, ila msilie, Katiba iko hapa kwa ajili yenu. Zilindwe haki zetu sote, zilindwe na zitunzwe, haki zetu sote zitunzwe, zilindwe haki zetu sote, zilindwe na zitunzwe, haki zetu sote zitunzwe.
Hii safari ni ndefu, lakini kwa miaka 10 hapa tumekaribia. Hii safari ni ndefu, lakini kwa miaka 10 hapa tumefika. Tuna hustle kuwa sonko, wakati kupata job na cash imekuwa so slow kama movement ya konokono. Mikono zetu hazifiti na pockets zao ziko in kama charger na socket. Wanabonga mom kama product ya safu, ongea taarifu, unataka change safu utapata kura tu ndio arifu. One nation tumelan, one lesson kupata change, mimi na wewe ndio one lesson. Wazee walisema penye nia pana njia, tuko stage hata tujapata njia, tunaitishwa mia. Weird, hatu hike siku hizi tu mountains zimekam home na prices za goods. Hatuna kura, zile tunazo tunauza. How we foods. Who's smarter now tukiwa njaa, wanakula kwao. Life's good for them, wanatumia words kama wow. Tap zikiflow na maji badala ya hewa. Tukiishi kwa nyumba after election badala ya hema. Tutajua kuna change to do difference ya pao na soko duka kuna change. Paper bag zina weight, hata nyumbani hatuna kazi ya plates. Tuona kesho, I guess. Hii safari ni ndefu, kwa miaka 10 hapa tumekaribia. Hii safari ni ndefu, na kwa katiba hapa tumefika.
Zilindwe haki zetu sote, zilindwe na zitunzwe, haki zetu sote zitunzwe, zilindwe haki zetu sote, zilindwe na zitunzwe, haki zetu sote zitunzwe.
Naingia shule kusoma, mwalimu anagoma, tuna graduate chuo kikuu na honors, notice board kusoma tukitafuta vacancy. Hii subject inaitwa experience tu kuona, ama hizi degree ni ya jobless corner. Ambulance imekuwa too fast kutupeleka kwa Grim Reaper. Juku maintain life, health services too expensive, death is cheaper. Wakishiba excess Turukana mills ni shida, kids dying daily ni msiba. Biashara ni hasara, tunauza sukari za nyumbani 100, ya magendo tunapunguza kadhaa asilimia. Fungueni macho tuone who's to blame. I ningekuwa mrasta ningesema I and I. Na pia poa na richi na widen itabidi maskini wote waokoke ndio tuone good life in heaven. No, tuna joke, it's never too late. It's never too late. It's never too late. Miaka 10 zimepita kwa katiba, hapa tunakaribia. Zilindwe haki zetu sote, zilindwe zitunzwe, haki zetu sote zitunzwe, zilindwe haki zetu sote, zilindwe na zilindwe haki zetu sote zitunzwe. E Mungu nguvu yetu, ilete baraka kwetu, akiwe ngao na mlinzi, akiwe ngao na mlinzi. E Mungu nguvu yetu, ilete baraka kwetu, akiwe ngao na mlinzi, akiwe ngao na mlinzi. Thank you. We are going to give you the last piece. Na hii inaitwa Days Are Gone. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Days are gone when we got lost and we got found. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This amazing lady who's sanitizing things is called Lulu. Lulu is one of the founding, I think, almost a founding Katiba member. She has seen it all from case number 1 to case 150. Let's appreciate Lulu doing an amazing job. You know, she's often the first person you'll meet at Katiba, and she gives you a very good impression. The answer is 10. You know why? The man has 10 eggs. He broke 2 and ate 2. How many does he have left? It's all in the grammar. Hey, it will drop in 3, 2, 1. No? Okay. Whew. Let's try another one. What goes up and never ever comes down? Guys, it's simple. What goes up and never ever comes down? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with Katiba as well. Okay, you can discuss. You can discuss. You know, you guys are thinking so hard, I can feel it. It's intense. What goes up and never comes down? The answer is your age. Guys. I'd now like to welcome Mr. Kevin Mabonga to come and give us a presentation of a video of KI's journey since its establishment. Kevin, do I have time for one more video as you prepare? Are you ready? Okay, good stuff.
Katiba Institute is a research, policy, public interest litigation, and community engagement organization. Its principal objective is to achieve social transformation through the implementation of the Constitution. Katiba Institute seeks to achieve this transformation through promoting knowledge and understanding of Kenya's constitution and constitutionalism, and defending and facilitating implementation of the 2010 Constitution. It works on diverse areas of the Constitution including human rights, leadership and integrity, devolution, environmental justice, elections and protection of human rights defenders against illegality and harassment by the police. The institute was founded in April 2011 by Professor Yashpal Gai, Jill Cottrell Gai, and Waikwa Wanyoike. We believe that if a culture of constitutionalism is developed and sustained, the social, political and economic gains promised under the 2010 Constitution will be realized. Katiba Institute advances a holistic approach including civic engagement, advocacy, capacity building, law reform and partnerships. We conduct research to build knowledge and understanding of the Constitution and various constitutional provisions, and provide solutions to social problems in Kenya and the region. The knowledge products we produce are used for training, advancing scholarly work, informing policy and legislative reforms, furthering civic engagement and public interest litigation. We often provide comments on bills and policies to ensure their compliance with the Constitution. Katiba Institute has made submissions to various parliamentary committees, government ministries, institutions and departments. Without the active involvement of the people, the Constitution remains a piece of paper. Katiba Institute has been committed to engaging with communities to build the awareness of the Constitution and enhance the ability to demand better service delivery and transparency and accountability in public affairs. These engagements have helped organizations and citizens to continue advocating for their rights and demand constitutional compliance by the government. We have trained and sensitized diverse groups, including students, civil society organizations, journalists, lawyers, paralegals, judicial officers and other public officers on various constitutional issues, particularly on access to information, human rights, devolution, and public participation in governance. The collective strategies of Katiba Institute civic engagement, petitioning relevant government agencies, and making access to information requests have been impactful in challenging the government's non-compliance with the Constitution, while simultaneously growing citizens' consciousness on constitutional matters. Our litigation is focused on protecting human rights and establishing transparency and accountability, good governance, and rule of law. We have worked with partners to litigate cases to secure or defend the rights of minorities, marginalized, and vulnerable groups. We have contributed to the growth in careers of personnel who have worked with us under various capacities, such as staff, interns, consultants, and fellows. Our reputation has grown as a resource center and learning space for students from local and international institutions. Katiba Institute alumni remain an integral part of the Katiba Institute family. Over the years, we have learned a great deal about what has been achieved and what more needs to be done. As we enter the next phase of Kenya's constitutional transformation, we will improve upon the work we have already done and continue to deepen our relationship with civil society, academia, professional bodies, media, and government institutions. We look forward to meeting new challenges and continuing to promote constitutionalism with the intensity and dedication that Kenyans have come to expect. This is Katiba Institute at 11, the story of our continued growth and evolution. Thank you for joining us on this journey.
Thank you, Kevin, for that. I just feel the need to highlight as well. I know we know Katiba a lot for the court cases, but they've done a lot of work in the counties, especially on access to information, on Article 47. Ben, how many counties have you done so far? Do you know on devolution? Yeah. more than 25, they've been to more than 25 counties, educating civil society groups, CSOs on access to information, on Article 47 rights, fair hearing and all. And they've also done a lot of publications, many publications. So let's appreciate even those other departments that we don't often hear about, but are also playing a very integral role. Let's appreciate them. It's now my pleasure to invite the former he was the first executive director at Katiba, Mr. Waikwa Wanyoike, to share his remarks with us. And he will then be followed by Evans. Evans, I have given you advance notice so that you don't say I've ambushed you. All right, ready?
Thank you, James. I hope you can hear me. Okay. In Katiba, people don't learn how to do protocols, and I've never learned that even after I left Katiba. So I'm just gonna say distinguished guests. I wish to thank Katiba for asking me to participate at the launch of the strategic plan 2020 to 2024. I wanted just to speak to 4 issues. First, to congratulate the Institute, not just on the launch of this strategic plan, but for being around at this time and for observing its 11th year. When we were discussing at the initial stage when we were launching the organization, and I think Yash, Jill, and I were discussing and asking, are we launching an organization that will be here forever, or how long should Katiba exist for? And I think it's Yash who said it will just exist for as long as it's needed. If it's 6 months, the better, but as long as it's needed. And at the time, he was actually very clear that we hope that we can close shop sooner, because that will mean that we will have achieved our mission, and it means that the aspect of constitutionalism will have stepped in Kenya. I think obviously Yash and Jill understood how difficult it might be to try and implement a constitution, and Yash has given that quote about how difficult that the making of the constitution is not the difficult work, it's the implementation. And so we obviously Katiba is here at its 11th year, and I see it growing and staying engaged for a very long time, given now that it's very clear to us that the work of protecting and defending the Constitution will continue. So just huge congratulations for achieving these 2 milestones. The second thing I wanted to speak to is Katiba's culture. And just to say, for me, I think, and James posed that question, how do you describe Katiba in one word? I would have wanted to participate. But for me, I think more than an institute that tries to promote the understanding of the Constitution, what really made my day every day that I worked at Katiba wasn't the work, it was the people. It is the culture that was there. And the way I just would describe it is a culture of just dedicated, passionate, and more importantly, and this would have been my one word, happy professionals. And many people who never worked in a toxic environment may take for granted what a good work culture does to people's ability to stay on course and do a good work, a good job. And so when you see Katiba winning those cases, being everywhere, I don't think it's so much because they have big names. In fact, in most cases, they don't. It's just that they have happy people, people who are willing to stay up to 4 in the morning. You'll find the person, every person is helping to put together documents, or just sit there to make sure that a colleague who is drafting submissions doesn't feel alone in the night. And for, at this point, I really would want to acknowledge Lulu. Lulu modeled that behavior of being supportive to colleagues, and it's amazing how one person can have impact, long-lasting impact on colleagues. So thank you, Lulu. The the third thing I wanted to speak to is just to thank the board and the donors. And now I speak as an alumni. I'm in the section of alumni. That's why Evans and I are sharing the same section in the program. And just to say to the board and to Katiba donors, because they bear, I think, one characteristic, and I know some donors are represented, including Abdul, who's worked with Katiba, not just now that he's with Luminate, but also was very, very critical at the formative stages of Katiba when he was with Open Society Foundation and many others. It's really the two groups that are very, very trusting and very supportive of very young, excitable professionals who just want to push the limits of what the Constitution can deliver. Working at Katiba as executive director, one of the most fascinating thing for me is that the board was never in my face, but it was always there and available to support when needed. And in fact, just to say, if you join Katiba's board meeting, the board members are more happy just to talk generally than to follow a program. It's one of the hardest meetings to run because people just want to talk generally, which for me is an indication of the trust they put in staff, and they don't feel the need to micromanage. And for the donors, we had very difficult conversations with donors initially, where we told donors that we are the ones who know what we want to do, so they have to trust us to decide what to do and not to prescribe to us what to do just because they're giving us money. And that actually, to a large extent, worked, and it's worked very well. And I'm happy that Katiba donors, by and large, have been very, very trusting of staff. Then the fourth, which ties to also my fifth point, is the model we chose, especially for strategic litigation, which is probably the one area that Katiba is very known for. We chose a model of in-house lawyers, where Katiba takes the work, the lawyers who are staff members do the work, and that work is not necessarily given to lawyers in private practice. And the main reason for that was to make sure that our work was sustainable. When you do strategic litigation or public interest litigation, the most important part is not the actual courtroom litigation. The most important work is community engagement and community and helping or working with community to give it voice, so that litigation is just part of a tool they use to articulate their issues. And what the model of private practice, when you try to use it to do strategic litigation or public interest litigation, does is it emphasizes the case over the people who are bringing the case. It makes the case the issue, or the drama in the case the issue, as opposed to making the real issues, the issues of socioeconomic rights faced by the communities, the central issue people should focus on. And it makes the lawyer the centerpiece instead of making the community or the client the centerpiece. We wanted to invert that model so that the centerpiece of the litigation was the community, and the centerpiece, or the main issue, is the issue presented by the community. And if people want to see how that model has worked well, is they need to look at the Lamu litigation. For me, that is the best case study. There are so many other case studies. There's cases, somebody like Emily is leading on indigenous community. And if you look at the model, it's really the model that elevates communities. You can never achieve that if you entirely rely on private practitioners and law firms to conduct your strategic litigation. But more importantly also is sustainability for the long term of the work and ability to carry the work. The work that Katiba does, the litigation especially, is very, very consequential. And this brings me to my fifth point, which is the ability to carry non-grammarless work. In fact, we used to call it, we knew that part of our mandate was to clean after others have created a mess. Because when litigation starts on a consequential issue, it's very exciting. The media is there, people are there is reporting. You'll have in some litigation, you'll have maybe 50 or 100 even lawyers showing up. When we did the securities law litigation, there were tons and tons of lawyers who came because that was a topical issue. Every MP who was a lawyer wanted to participate. That case was actually one of the petitioners was a political coalition. That case remains in court. And this is about 6-7 years later. Who is carrying that work at the moment? It's Katiba. Everybody left, largely. And so, but why does Katiba stay on to carry that work? Because the precedent that will eventually be established at the Supreme Court is so critical. So if you abandon the work once it loses the grammar, then you've done an even greater disservice than if you had actually got involved in the work. So that model then allows the organization to stay engaged and to be able to spot critical issues that will take long to resolve, but that are so consequential. And I'm happy to see that that has worked out very well. So I just want to again thank Katiba for the invitation, and also thank also finally the alumni for remaining engaged. There is a lot of support that continues, and people wanting to continue to be connected with Katiba, even if they had been in Katiba just for internship purposes. And I think that's a really a really encouraging thing for an organization that sees itself as hoping to use constitutionalism for social transformation. Thank you very much, James and others.
All right, let's appreciate Mr. Waikwa. I think, part of the mistake I made is I assumed everyone knows who Waikwa is because we worked with him for so long. But just for introduction purposes, Waikwa is the litigation director at the Open Society Justice Initiative. Now, before joining the Justice Initiative, Waikwa co-founded and served as the executive director of Katiba Institute in Nairobi for 8 years. He was admitted to the practice of law in Ontario, Canada, followed by Kenya. And of course, he has litigated high-profile cases in both jurisdictions, that's Canada and Kenya, before trial and appellate courts. He has also taught seminars on public litigation and trial advocacy at Osgood Law School in Toronto, Canada. It's Toronto, okay? But up in Toronto, so in Toronto, Canada. He's the author of numerous book chapters, scholarly papers, and editorial opinions, and has served on the boards of Canadian and Kenyan human rights NGOs. He studied at Kenyatta University in Kenya and at York and Queen's Universities in Canada. Let's appreciate Waikwa one more time. I'd now like to bring to us another alumni of Katiba. This is Mr. Evans Ogada. Evans is the first Kenyan to speak French before the Court of Appeal. So we hope they understood, but it appears they did because they agreed with everything he said. And he won. So Evans specializes in constitutional and administrative law litigation. He has handled numerous cases in these areas, including representing the Law Society of Kenya in 2019 in a petition concerning the appointment of judges and 2 petitions on arbitrary arrest. He's a member of the Law Society of Kenya's Public Interest Committee. He's a member of the Law Society of Kenya's Nairobi Branch Constitutional/Judicial Review Bar Bench Committee. He worked at the Katiba Institute, and he also teaches public law at the University of Nairobi School of Law. And he also serves regularly on civil society panels on the rule of law and international criminal law. He's an associate editor with the Platform for Law, Justice and Society, which we ordinarily know as the Platform magazine. He is a graduate of the University of Nairobi, where he received his LLB and his LLM in Public International Law. And he has done many, many publications. You can find this if you just search for Evans Ogada. And of course, he speaks French at the Court of Appeal. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Evans Ogada. Thank you, Evans. Take your time, take your time. All right.
Good morning. Now, James and I were alumni at the same time. Actually, not alumni. He was on his pupillage. I was doing my intern at Katiba Institute. So it explains the level of jokes and familiarity around us. It's always fun having James. Waiko Wanyoike. That's the reason and my first contact with Katiba. I remember meeting him for the first time at the Kenya School of Law, where he'd come to deliver a class lesson on advocacy, appellate advocacy. And the grace, humility, the genuineness and warmness of him as a person resulted in me at the end of that conversation telling him that come what may, I will come to Katiba Institute. I remember leaving my internship at a prestigious law firm and opting not to renew it so that I will have the Katiba experience. And I can tell you for a fact that the experience at Katiba is transformative. It never leaves you the same. Waiko has alluded to the fact that when you get to Katiba, Katiba will leave you with a sense of family. You come in there, it's not your usual toxic office environment. This is an environment where, especially where the office was at Hurlingham, it was your typical home. You will go to the kitchen, it looked just like home, and you'll have your conversation. You'll not know who is boss and who is not. And it was not stressful. It was a very good working environment. Another thing that we took out of Katiba was the exposure. And this does not happen in any other place that I know of. Katiba will expose you to clever and interesting ways of looking at the law. I remember James and myself and Omar El-Mawi handling assignments for the Lamu Port, Lamu Coal, a myriad of cases. And whatever you were given to look at, the instruments you're exposed to, I mean, these are things that you will not learn even in our ordinary universities. You're exposed to a lot, and the learning environment creates that research bug, that research urge in you. Another thing that comes with Katiba, it teaches you to be strategic in terms of thinking. You don't reason like your ordinary day lawyer. You think in terms of, what do I need to do? How do I need to achieve it? And how can I make sure that whatever I am doing will definitely get me results? So that is a Katiba unique way of thinking, as opposed to your ordinary law firms, which will teach you to go and get me decided cases from the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court. That's not the Katiba way of doing things. Katiba trains you to think in terms of creating law for the future. And I can assure you, and all of you can attest to the fact that you cannot research in the area of constitutional law or administrative law without finding the footprints of Katiba Institute. In the last few minutes, we've had the High Court sentence the Director of Criminal Investigation to prison for contempt of court. I can assure you that the boldness that is in the courts, the boldness that is in some of us, that we can stand and look at any judge in this country and tell them the law as it is. It's a Katiba spirit. And the judges are feeding off that spirit. I remember going to court with Waikwa on several occasions, and you can see the judges picking up on that spirit now, and judges are able to do things that were considered heresy in this country. We can now sentence senior government officials for contempt of court. That was not thinkable some 11 years ago. Young Turks, young men like myself, James, Omar El-Mawi, who is doing a fantastic job with environmental litigation, we can go to court and continue the Katiba message and the Katiba spirit. I remember, and this work that Katiba does is not safe, and it's not for the faint-hearted. I remember there's a time that Waikwa, Lempa, I don't know if James was there, people went to Naivasha, and they were dealing with some community issue, and the NYS pulled guns on Waikwa. It was quite menacing. They threatened to shoot people who were simply doing their jobs. Those are the kind of perils, the danger that staff at Katiba face when they go out there to do this kind of work. But nonetheless, we are, and Katiba emboldens you to face these dangers boldly. And when we speak our French at the courts, James, this is a clever Katiba way of telling off some established power centers. And we will continue that, because out there we are ambassadors of Katiba. We continue holding the Katiba message close to our hearts. the ethics and morality of what Katiba does remains with us. So 11 years ago, Professor Guy thought this will last perhaps 6 years. This is going to last more than 6 years. That should Professor Guy decide to retire, I'm very sure James and others will be willing to take over and continue with the gospel. I can assure that some of us are willing to continue being foot soldiers. Feel free to call on us. We are never scared, we are never intimidated. We will stand with Katiba. This is home, this is family, and we will do what needs to be done. Finally, as I wind up, Katiba for me has a special and personal significance. When I was writing my thesis on the death penalty, I remember I called on my Katiba family to help me with some of the reasoning. And I remember calling on to Professor Jill, who was gracious enough to tolerate my stubbornness and consistency. I always joke around with Professor Jill that I'm the enfant terrible, the stubborn child. She helped me with the reading of the thesis and with the ideas and with the cleaning up. And guess what? When that thing went before a panel, no correction, no amendments. It was passed just because the name Professor Yashpal Guy and Jill Guy appeared in the appreciation section. So Katiba resonates personally for me. It has built me as a person, it builds me as a lawyer, and we will continue associating with it. May I thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Let's appreciate Evans one more time. Santa Sana, I think Evans has reminded me, if you ever walked into Katiba offices on a random day, you'd think people are fighting because no one used to speak in a low voice, you know? And interns were arguing with lawyers and with the executive director. And I mean, no one's position was low. If you come there and someone feels they disagree with you, they tell you. And you argue it out. I think it was a lovely, lovely experience. And I think, Yash and Jill, it speaks a lot about the institution that we have so many alumni that are here today. Let me just ask everyone to rise. Alumni of Katiba, guys who are here. Now, before we clap for them, how many of you can go back to the place that employed you 5 years ago? They just have a random event and you're going back. Please remain standing. Please remain standing. Let's appreciate these ladies and gentlemen. They came and they found a home, and we appreciate that that culture still continues to date. You may have your seats, guys. Thank you. Now, I'd like to call upon Shafi Hussein. Shafi is the Executive Director of the Nubian Rights Forum. This is a community-based organization dedicated to legal empowerment on land rights, citizenship, and gender-based violence. He leads a citizenship program that works with the Nubian community who have citizenship in law, but in practice, they face discrimination in attempts to access proof of nationality or related rights and services. Paralegals from these communities empower others to overcome discriminatory treatment, to access legal identity documents, and drive changes to the national legal framework on citizenship rights. Shafi has previously worked with Uraia on civic education, engaging citizens on the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4 of the Constitution. He is also a member of the Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies under Tangaza University. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Shafi Hussein.
Good morning, everybody. My name is once again Shafi Ali Hussein from the Nubian Rights Forum. In fact, I, Shafi, and somebody by the name Ahmad and Fatuma Abdurrahman. We are the founding members of the Nubian Rights Forum. But before we registered Nubian Rights Forum, I think that is about 18 years ago, we were working under the umbrella of National Congress with Maurice Odhiambo and the late, there's a bishop here, I forgot his name. So I want just to share my working experience with Katiba Institute. Before we registered Nubian Rights Forum, I think each and every 1 month or 1 week, we were disturbing this great old man here, Mr. Yashpal Gai. We used to call him, he invites us at his home, and when visiting there, he gives us some advice, and sometimes invite us to join Katiba in some meetings. Until when we registered the Nubian Rights Forum. And as you've been told here, Nubian Rights Forum, we are dealing with the challenges we are facing by ourselves. That is citizenship. And also the challenge of land. As I think most of the people knows, and those who does not understand, are Nubian originally. Have been born just here in Nairobi at Kibera. Kibera is the headquarters of the Nubian community in Kenya. And Nubian come as a result of the King Africa Rifles. Those are our ancestors who fought the Germans and others for the British to colonize this country, Kenya. So my experience with Katiba Institute, I do remember first, the first money we get it from the Open Society. That is where now my friend Waikwa is working with. And by that time, the head of the project was one Laura Bingham. When Laura asked me, Shafi, in terms of any big institution or human rights institution in Kenya, whom would you like to work with? I straight away told Laura I will work with Katiba Institute because of Yashpal Gai. This great old man here have really assisted Nubians. And he has visited the Nubian, I think, several times. About 3 or 4 times, we invited him with the Nubian Council of Elders. And I think the late Professor Said of Aga Khan Hospital, who was heading the NUSO, Nubian University students, they've several times invited Mr. Yashpal Gai. So Mr. Gai, I do remember very, very well one time when we are in Musumkati, when Raila Amolo Odinga was the prime minister. I went to Yashpal Gai at home. We discussed about the Nubian land. And this old man went all over to his friend, is it Salim Lome, who was working with Mheshimiwa Raila, and he had a sitting with Raila on that issue. But the answer, let it remain for me and him. So I am just telling you guys the much Mr. Yashpal Gai have assisted the Nubians. So by now, since my friend Waikwa left, and he went to OSJ who are giving me money, I think I remain with Akina Christine and Mr. Kakaring over there. And I would like to thank them. Mr. Kakaring is always coming to Kibra. And we have about 2 cases out of the 150 cases they have for the forceful eviction. So I think mine will be brief. I want to thank Katiba Fraternity, and I want to assure Katiba Fraternity we will work together, and Katiba remains the watchman of the Constitution of Kenya in terms of implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Katiba's work, especially for the Nubian community, is well documented. All right, there is one more question. What belongs to you but others use it more than you? Hey, okay, we are sorry. No pause, that's right. Okay. I'm light as a feather, but not even the strongest person in the world can hold me for more than 5 minutes. What am I? Sorry? Not air, not quite. You're nearly there. Your breath, thank you. I think you guys are ready. You're ready for the next guest. I was just trying to find out if you are. All right, I'd like now to call Mr. Gitahi Githuku. Mr. Gitahi is the Senior Program Officer at the American Jewish World Services, AJWS. Now, his focus areas are part of what he likes doing, and the areas he's worked on include land, water and climate justice, and he has also previously dealt in a sexual health rights program. His work also has involved grant making, especially among grassroots and marginalized communities, networks and movement building, and working with human rights defenders. He has worked with human rights tools and mechanisms in various national and regional human rights and dignity forums over the years, and he has gained overarching culminative expertise on human rights issues, including access to justice, good governance, security and protection of HRDs, indigenous peoples' rights, and advancing basic rights and fundamental freedoms for all. Mr. Githuku is a friend of Katiba Institute and is a development partner. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome Gitahi Githuku.
Jambo. Hello. Thank you, Waikwa, Jill, and Yash. The dream is valid. And Jill, to answer your question, we are friends of Katiba, but some of us are also beneficiaries. And we shall continue supporting. So being introduced as a funder, I'm a bit new in this role. I am a human rights defender, seconded to that role. And I have been in the streets trying to work towards the constitution that we later got. Tasted the tear gas, looked at the inside of the cells in the process of getting this constitution. Thank you, Katiba, for defending it. We got it through sweat and blood. Thank you so much, Katiba. I have walked the journey with Katiba, and I'll give a few examples. Before I joined AJWS, I worked with an organization working on improving safer working environment for human rights defenders. So I go to Katiba, and we all knew that they were exposed to risks. We were trying to see how do we work that out. By the time I left, I think I was more scared than anyone else in Katiba. They said, no, that's fine, that's fine. We have the ability to talk truth to power. Katiba talks truth to power up to this day. And they have brought us on board. I have worked with Katiba in Lamu, challenging LAPSET. We walked that journey. In the Environmental Tribunal, challenging the coal processing plant. We worked with Katiba during the Ogiek ruling and thereafter the tribunal, and many others, like the Sengwer community journey. Being with Katiba, they have so much, and I agree with you, Waikwa, so much respect for communities. Recently, I've been accepted to be a member of the Indigenous Women Council. Yeah, it's a big deal. And they talk of Katiba in a very big way, that when Katiba goes in front of Indigenous women, they don't go with the English that normally lawyers would go with. They go and sit with the women on the ground, and they add value to the lives of people they do work with. This is the Katiba I know. This is the Katiba I want to thank. And I think in a country that we see things upside down, for example, a Kenya delegation going with more than 2 planes to talk about emission. They could have done it from here, the same government talking about coal processing plant. When we see things, or the government sees things upside down, Katiba is trying to help us keep the downside down. So what I would say here is that as funders, Katiba is open, is accountable, and you do not need to give this type of an organization restricted funding. They know what they want, and they do it well. I do advocate for general funding because they are accountable, and we all know this. They know the priorities, and kindly increase the amount a bit, because what was said here, they do not sleep. They have cases that keep them trans night, and we expect them in court in the morning. So if we can support Katiba to have maybe at least 50 more lawyers, I'm sure this country will change better and more quickly. So I would thank and finish by saying, I join Katiba in the journey of talking basic rights and fundamental freedoms for all people all the time, not some rights for some people sometime. Thank you very much, Katiba.
Asante sana. That appointment is interesting. That appointment is interesting. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to bring to us our chief guest, Mr. Abdul Kadir Nur Mohammed. I hope I got that right. He leads Luminate's funding activities in Africa. He brings more than 20 years experience in consulting and leading successful civic engagement programs across Africa through grant making, comprehensive support, and advocacy. Prior to joining Luminate, Abdul was executive director of the Kenya section of the International Commission of Jurists, that's the ICJ. During his time at ICJ Kenya, he provided strategic direction, restructured programs and budgets, upgraded the financial structures and organizational policies, and revamped ICJ Kenya's profile and brand. Abdul was previously a program officer for the Democratic Governance and Rule of Law program at the Open Society Initiative for Eastern Africa, what we know as OSEA. In this role, he directed and managed grant making and advocacy on international justice, security governance, and protection of human rights defenders at risk. Prior to his appointment at OSEA, Abdul worked at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, KNHCR, where he headed the Redress and Legal Department for 5 years. Abdul is also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I know we've been seated for some time. Could I ask us, in honor of our chief guest, please let's rise as we welcome him to just come and speak to us. We honor you, Abdul. Thank you for the work you've done. 20 years. I know it's going to be mad at me. I made you stand for him. Huh? Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks for standing, but I really don't think I deserve that honor in the presence of Professor Yash and Jill. They are the real people to honor in this room. And 20 years makes me feel really old. Right. So to the founders and co-directors of Katiba Institute, Professor Yash Palgai and Jill Cottrell-Guy, member of the board, Dr. Linda Musumba, my fellow development partners, governmental and civil society organizations represented here today, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's really my great pleasure to be part of this launch of the Strategic Plan 2020-2024. It is a special honor to be standing here today to witness the remarkable journey that Katiba Institute has made since its establishment and to share in its achievements. I say so because, as Waikwa mentioned, my interaction with Katiba Institute stretches many, many years and ranges from being a peer in the civil society sector and at several stages of my career, a development partner, supporting Katiba Institute's vision of advancing the rule of law and constitutionalism in Kenya. In the recent past, as the executive director of ICJ Kenya, I collaborated with Katiba Institute on various interventions, such as promoting judicial independence, advocating for the respect and promotion of human rights, and supporting public interest litigation, among many other initiatives. And now, as the Africa Director for Luminate, I am proud to continue supporting the work of Katiba Institute, particularly in promoting public participation in governance and securing accountability for the use of state power to the tool of access to information. And as Gitahi said, we at Luminate champion unrestricted funding for our partners. It's difficult to analyze the last 11 years of Kenya's new constitutional dispensation without acknowledging Katiba Institute's footprint in that journey. We celebrate you, Katiba Institute, for your unwavering contribution to advancing the rule of law in Kenya and ultimately making a positive impact in the lives of Wanjiku. Your influence has been greatly felt in public interest litigation on matters of national importance, particularly in advocating for transparency and accountability in governance in this country. Your impact, however, isn't just in PIL. It goes beyond court judgments and the corridors of justice. Katiba Institute has equally proven itself in advancing knowledge about the Constitution in public sphere, building the capacities of many policymakers, equipping citizens with tools to demand accountability, as well as influencing legislative reforms. These collective efforts have not only laid a foundation for Kenyans to demand change, but have also inspired ordinary Kenyans to take up the battle themselves and advocate their rights within their own capacity. This is no mean feat. Our convening today, therefore, is a testimony that the ideals of the Constitution, though difficult to realize, are still within reach. We are bolstered by the courage demonstrated by Katiba Institute in resolutely defending and safeguarding the Constitution. But as we celebrate the milestones today, we cannot rest on our laurels. There is more work that needs to be done to ensure that governance is people-centered and people-driven. Katiba Institute and other like-minded organizations remain critical stakeholders in supporting the realization of that goal. Furthermore, by gathering us here today, Katiba Institute is demonstrating its commitment to the journey that began 11 years ago and inviting us to support them in that journey. So we join Katiba Institute in supporting its vision of social transformation to the 2010 Constitution and the 5 pillars that Christine earlier told us that the vision is anchored on: good governance, devolution, rights and fundamental freedoms, environmental justice, natural resource governance and climate change, and organization excellence. These are important focal points that align with the hopes and dreams of Kenyans and intersect with the global priorities in supporting development that not only grows and sustains economies, but assures citizens of a dignified life. The next phase of Katiba Institute's trajectory will be as crucial as its past interventions. This last decade has not been a smooth run for Kenya's democracy. We have witnessed affronts to judicial independence, disregard for court orders, the weakening of independent bodies and oversight institutions, threats to devolution, shrinking civic space and disruptive politics, among others. This is the context we live in, and we must remain steadfast to protect the gains we made under the 2010 Constitution. It is a call to strengthen our resolve to advancing the values and principles of the Constitution and to build resilience against potential setbacks. As the African proverb says, the rain does not fall on one roof alone, and therefore our efforts cannot be isolated. As Katiba Institute defends Kenyans, so we must defend Katiba Institute, because Katiba Institute cause is our cause. I share in the goodwill that Katiba Institute enjoys from Kenyans, its partners, and the peers in the sector. The recognition of your achievements and continued demand for your intervention is a testament to the important place you occupy in our society. Today, we at Luminate renew our commitment to support the work that you do. We are proud to be associated with your successes and endeavors, and we wish you continued success in the implementation of your strategic plan 2020-2024. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to do that Kenyan thing where we sindikiza someone, okay? As soon as his feet touch the ground, okay? 1, 2, aya moja, mbili, fungua. Thank you so much, Abdul. Now, I'd just like to recognize the presence of Mr. Davis Malombe. Are you here, Davis? Just stand and wave, please. Oh, there he is. Davis Malombe is Executive Director at the KHRC and is a partner of Katiba Institute. At this point in time, we are now getting ready for the launch. I would like to invite the Executive Director at Katiba Institute and litigator par excellence. Is that how we say it, Evans? Par excellence. Yeah, Ms. Gaking Konge. Let's welcome Christine, please. Miss.
So this, James is my first pupil. When he was at Katiba Institute, I was his pupillage mistress for the lack of a better word. It's good to see my students doing very well. So I also like to invite Dr. Linda Musumba to come to the stage, and she will be helping us with the launch of the strategic plan. Dr. Linda Musumba is a member of the Katiba Institute's board. She's also the founding dean of the Kenyatta University School of Law, chair of KIPRA, and now is the leading partner in Dr. Linda Musumba and Company Advocates, consulting and providing legal services as well. Excellent legal services as well. Thank you, Linda. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Christine. To founder members, Professors Yash and Jill and Waikwa, I think it's a proud moment to stand here this afternoon and be able just to say something before the launch. I think I do need to issue a correction. I am no longer at KIPRA, but I am proud to be associated with KIPRA. So when Waikwa was speaking, it just struck me that great things begin from humble beginnings. 3 people coming together. They haven't told us how they came together. And I'm hoping that at some point we shall learn what it is that brought the 3 of them together to have a discussion about coming up with an institution such as this. But from 3 people, the impact of Katiba is there for all of us to see. I don't need to repeat what has been said as we've gone through the course of today. An amazing, amazing impact, 3 people coming together. But I'd like to say that I always say that things don't go wrong, they start wrong. So for me, Katiba, clearly when the 3 came together, they started right. Because when you start right, then you have, you work a trajectory towards posterity. That's the reason why we're here 11 years later celebrating the work that Katiba has been doing, not only in the court cases, as has been said by our MC, but also in the community outreach programs that it's doing. You've had the leader of the Nubian Rights Forum saying that Professor Yash has been to visit the Nubian community not once, twice, or thrice, has worked with them. So you're talking about sitting at humble tables and also sitting at tables at the top. We all know that Professor Yash, of course, was the chair of the Constitutional Review Commission at the time. So in terms of the length and breadth of understanding this country and what this country is about, I think he knows it all. So I salute the 3 individuals who sat together and have given birth to an institution that I think has been spoken so well of by the alumni who've been able to speak here. And, just the work of the institution as it's seen out there speaks for itself. And of course, the comments and the remarks that were made by partners of Katiba during during the revision of the strategic plan to create the one that will be launched here today. One of the things that strikes me is that as the culture at Katiba has been described, the way people work with one another, the hard work that is put in to be able to get the results that there are, one of the things that strikes me is that perhaps maybe that is the culture that is lacking to a large extent at in our national political and basically governance discourse. That when people come together to plan something, we're planning how to hide something and put on the table just a little. We only need to look through, for example, how our budget has been spent, how the cases that come to court that are clear evidence of corruption at national and private levels, not only national, but also in the private sector, because when you look at the KEMSA issue, it of course ropes in national, players at the national level as well as the private. So I was asking myself, what if people were honest brokers, honest transactions? We had that Katiba, you have not won all the cases, that Katiba has not won all the cases. There are some that it has not won, isn't it? But when they are lost, they are not lost because someone at Katiba worked with another person to bring it down, isn't it? We have not heard that anybody has compromised any of the cases that are at Katiba. It is to say that even when you are doing your best, sometimes you will win and sometimes you lose, isn't it? But we appreciate, work that has been done with integrity, with honesty, and, with such, commitment and passion for a cause. As I come towards the end of what I want to say, of course, is to recognize the role that Katiba has played as a vanguard in the defense of the Constitution. Because of the work that Katiba is doing, there are so many Katibas out there, isn't it? Mr. Ogada there is playing his role, not in Katiba now, but out there. But that's another, way of Katiba extending itself, isn't it? Mr. Nyabera there now working in a different place, but also carrying the ethics of Katiba. And at the constituency and county levels, we now have Katibas, isn't it? I mean, organizations that have seen the work that Katiba has done and are now replicating. Because the idea, of course, is Katiba cannot do all the work in this country. It can't. It cannot do so because resources are finite, but also human resource and capacity is finite. So the idea is replication, that others can also pick up and fight for the issues that affect counties and that affect constituencies. And so Katiba, I really congratulate the institution for being a vanguard, showing the way to others so that they're able to also pick those things up. Now, as I come to my last point, I also want, one thing I want to recognize and also salute you, Waiko, I hope that you're still online, is for being a mentor to many within the organization. And for me, it's also particularly to the executive director who took over from Katiba. Who took over from Waiko. We have seen, Christine take over from where Waiko left. And there are those who would have thought, but Christine doesn't have the base that Waiko has. But Christine doesn't have the tenor that he has. But Christine does not walk like Waiko. But I'm happy to note that through the mentorship that Waiko has done and the way that he has stood with the organization, that Christine has picked up, and we have seen also, the organization move towards the success that was envisaged by the three. So I congratulate you, Christine, for what you've been able to do as the executive director, even in steering the organization and working with the teams there. I congratulate the staff who are there on behalf of the board, the other colleagues on the board who are not able to be here today, but on their behalf, I congratulate the members of staff, led, of course, by the executive director, and also, overseen by Professor Yash and Jill. So let me just say now, as a final word, how proud I am to be able to serve on the Katiba board. It is, I really appreciate the board because the same spirit that exists, I think, I think the MC was saying, where he was saying that people, have arguments about, I think at the board, there has been such a spirit of, people being candid and honest and giving their views and openness and discussion and then agreement, and moving forward. So, and I think that is important. I shouldn't come to a meeting as a board member feeling threatened that if I say something in this way, it is going to be taken this way or the other. So there has been such an open spirit on the board, enabling us to be able to play our part and our humble contribution to the organization. So for the time that I've been on the board, and of course, institutions are like revolving doors. You walk in and one day you walk out. And this is what I always used to say to Kipra. I'm proud to see one of the members of staff who was at Kipra before Linda Bore. I always used to say that you walk into an institution one day and you walk out another day, isn't it? But what do you, when you are there, what have you done to be able to, play your part, affect people, affect, the cause for the organization, and so forth and so on. So Katiba is real results. I think the gentleman from the organization, the American Jewish, I forget, I'm sorry, I can't say the whole word, but what he has said, when he has said that, give Katiba money because they know what they're doing, it's because there are results. He wouldn't be saying what he's saying if there were no results. The results are plain for everyone to see. And so for that, I really congratulate Katiba, and thank you very much for the opportunity to say something small.
For the poetry. Thank you so much.
Right. So I now declare the strategic plan 2020-2024 officially launched. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for that.
Thank you so much. So we can. Okay, thank you so much. So we will be handing over some of the strategic plan, so that you all have a copy and you are able to view it at your pleasure later on. So we are now coming to the tail end of this process, and I will invite Mr. Chris Kakering to come and give the vote of thanks. So thank you so much for joining me for this process. Oh, okay. So I'm going to give a chance to our funding director and the visionary behind Katiba Institute, Professor Yashpal Gai. some minutes to say a few words. Thank you.
You probably know that I was not chosen as a speaker in the party, but I have noticed many references to my name. Don't get mistaken. Nothing I could have done by myself, whether it was the constitution making, other factors. I provided certain ideas and so on, but it was always a struggle of people who were committed to democracy, to fairness. Without them, and some of them couldn't come here today, like our former Chief Justice. So don't get confused. I have not really made any great contribution to our wonderful country. I have been I've tried my best, but without the participation of many others, and some you did see. So I just want to thank you all very much for somewhat misguided notion of what I have done for this country. I haven't. I've done the best I could, but I can't say that was so fantastic that you should have spent the whole day talking about me. I think Katiba Institute was perhaps my idea, but to take any credit for Katiba Institute's fantastic record, absolutely fantastic. I have nothing to do with it. But I'm glad that we established it. And I think Katiba Institute is an extremely valuable institution for the country. Even I think outside now, I think we must all give our best support we can to Katiba. I had never thought when I suggested Katiba that it would have such a big impact on the country in the long run. And also, anything goes wrong, I always think, well, don't worry, we have Katiba around us, and they will do something about it. And so I want to thank you very much for organizing this. I felt very moved. I don't think I deserve it. Everything I have done for my country has been something that other people have done. I could have done nothing, whether it is in teaching, whether it is making constitutions, unless Kenyan people committed to the country had not been. I can't think of anything. Sometimes I think people praise me for this or that, and they have no idea the kind of support I got, ideas that they gave me. I took and said that's what we should. So I think we are very lucky. Kenya has had some fantastic people, and some of you are in this room. I'm very glad to be here, but please don't get mistaken that without me, we would not have achieved what we have. Thank you very much indeed. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yash. And as always, as one of my mentors, his humility never continually astounds me. Thank you so much, Yash. And I think to bring this now to a close, I'll invite Mr. Chris Kakarin to give our vote of thanks.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the committee who put this together for really a seamless, efficient, and fun morning and afternoon. I'd like to pick up on where Yash left off, which is who really deserves a vote of thanks. On August 4th, 2010, Kenyans voted on whether to adopt a new constitution and voted overwhelmingly yes. We would not be here without the people who went and studied and learned and made an informed, amazing choice to say yes. So I think the first vote of thanks is to everyone who said yes and everyone who voted in that referendum on that day. Secondly, I think we need to remember that there is no Katiba Institute without Kenyans. And we are dependent on the fact that hundreds of thousands of Kenyans say yes every day to the Constitution, to the fundamental rights and freedoms they have, to the commitment to good governance, to the commitment to devolution. So let's say thanks to all of the Kenyans who say yes every day to the Constitution. I'd also, of course, I'm going to do it, Yash. I'm going to say thank you to you and to Jill for your long-term commitment to this project. It's rare that you see two people who have both a consistent and coherent belief system. And that belief system really is motivated by who it is who deserves the focus of their intellect and their attention. And we're always very grateful for that. Gitahi Githuku, thank you so much for your speech and your inspiration. Abdul Qadir, thank you so much. I'm looking for you here. He had to leave, so thank you in absentia. Dr. Musumba, thank you so much for your inspiring work and for your comments today. Katiba Institute alumni, it's just astounding to see the group of people that are involved with this project, and it is just wonderful to see how the commitment continues even after the paycheck ends. So thank you so much for that. Waikwa, who unfortunately was here in absentia, really just an incredible driving force behind this project and behind Katiba. But I think that we also need to pay an extra thank you to Christine, who did nearly the impossible, which is to take a institution from its founders to its next generation and to do it in a way that helps define and grow the institution in an impressive way. So I think that may be one of the hardest tasks that anybody can undertake, and Christine has done it admirably. Thank you to MediaForce and Zoom Africa for their work in broadcasting this to those who couldn't be here, and to our beloved MC for keeping us alive and engaged today. That can often be a real challenge. The KI staff, every day I try to be the first one into KI, and it's never happened. And that's because there is always somebody working. It is absolutely incredible. Always somebody committed. One day I'm just going to get there at midnight or at 12:01 just to say that I was the first to arrive. I might fail even then. But so thank you so much to this incredibly dedicated group of people. It's just a pleasure to be working with you. And then I'd like to thank civil society members as well. We all stand together. There is never a point where if any civil society organization, community-based organization has to stand alone, they will fall. And so we need to stick together, and we need to remain comrades and share our support and our vision. There are the community members. It's just too many to thank. First of all, Shafi, thanks for letting me come to Katiba and hang out with you. It's always a pleasure. And thank you to the community members. Right now, there are community in Mukuru who are being evicted and who are doing protests. There are community members in Turkana, in Yala, on the coast. They are, again, the beating heart of this organization. Nothing happens without them. So I think I speak for everyone when I want to say thank you to them. And thank you for being the defenders of the Constitution and giving us and giving meaning to the work we do. I am almost certain I forgot someone. So thank you to the people who I forgot. And you can come twist my arm afterwards. But this is a group effort, and it is just a pleasure to be able to be up here and to close off this ceremony. So thanks everyone, and let the strategic plan move us forward, and let's celebrate the work we do and continue to work harder.
Thank you so much. Let's appreciate Chris. Let me see how many honest people we have. When you saw Chris's name on the program, how many of us knew it was Kakering? How many of us knew it was Kakering? How many of us thought it was Kekering? How many of us were reading it as Kekering? Then you're like, is it caring? Is it curing? Okay, it's nice. It's nice to know Chris. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Katiba Institute has prepared lunch for you so that as you now go to handle your afternoon business, you'll be in good shape. So we will have meal vouchers that will be issued to each of us. But we are also encouraging that you please pick a copy of our strategic plan. Go have a look at it. I think copies are being passed around. Please take one back with you to your organization. Take one back home. And we will... Douglas and Maureen, are you here? Yes, so Douglas and Maureen will be giving us our meal tags. We will have our meal at the Flame Tree restaurant, which is at the entrance of the hotel. So go to Flame Tree with your meal ticket and you can have your meal. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you'd like to stay here because anything with Katiba is always so much fun. You don't want it to stop, but all good things must come to an end. All right. So thank you so much. Have a lovely day. And Katiba Mbele, Sindio. Thank you guys. I'm being told I forgot to say my name. Okay, I'm James Wanjeri for those who came late, and it has been my pleasure to host you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's disappeared. I don't know when the last time I saw it. Okay. You can check it. Okay. Wait.
Katiba Institute is a research, policy, public interest litigation, and community engagement organization. Its principal objective is to achieve social transformation through the implementation of the Constitution. Katiba Institute seeks to achieve this transformation through promoting knowledge and understanding of Kenya's Constitution and constitutionalism, and defending and facilitating implementation of the 2010 Constitution. It works on diverse areas of the Constitution, including human rights, leadership and integrity, devolution, environmental justice, elections and protection of human rights defenders against illegality and harassment by the police. The institute was founded in April 2011 by Professor Yashpal Gai, Jill Cottrell Gai, and Waikwa Wanyoike. We believe that if a culture of constitutionalism is developed and sustained, the social, political and economic gains promised under the 2010 Constitution will be realized. Katiba Institute advances a holistic approach including civic engagement, advocacy, capacity building, law reform and partnerships. We conduct research to build knowledge and understanding of the Constitution and various constitutional provisions, and provide solutions to social problems in Kenya and the region. The knowledge products we produce are used for training, advancing scholarly work, informing policy and legislative reforms, furthering civic engagement and public interest litigation. We often provide comments on bills and policies to ensure their compliance with the Constitution. Katiba Institute has made submissions to various parliamentary committees, government ministries, institutions and departments. Without the active involvement of the people, the Constitution remains a piece of paper. Katiba Institute has been committed to engaging with communities to build the awareness of the Constitution and enhance the ability to demand better service delivery and transparency and accountability in public affairs. These engagements have helped organizations and citizens to continue advocating for their rights and demand constitutional compliance by the government. We have trained and sensitized diverse groups, including students, civil society organizations, journalists, lawyers, paralegals, judicial officers and other public officers on various constitutional issues, particularly on access to information, human rights, devolution, and public participation in governance. The collective strategies of Katiba Institute civic engagement, petitioning relevant government agencies, and making access to information requests have been impactful in challenging the government's non-compliance with the Constitution, while simultaneously growing citizens' consciousness on constitutional matters. Our litigation is focused on protecting human rights and establishing transparency and accountability, good governance and rule of law. We have worked with partners to litigate cases to secure or defend the rights of minorities, marginalized, and vulnerable groups. We have contributed to the growth in careers of personnel who have worked with us under various capacities, such as staff, interns, consultants, and fellows. Our reputation has grown as a resource center and learning space for students from local and international institutions. Katiba Institute alumni remain an integral part of the Katiba Institute family. Over the years, we have learned a great deal about what has been achieved and what more needs to be done. As we enter the next phase of Kenya's constitutional transformation, we will improve upon the work we have already done and continue to deepen our relationship with civil society, academia, professional bodies, media, and government institutions. We look forward to meeting new challenges and continuing to promote constitutionalism with the intensity and dedication that Kenyans have come to expect. This is Katiba Institute at 11, the story of our continued growth and evolution. Thank you for joining us on this journey.
When you zoom Africa from up above, it's as though someone had traveled the world, collected its best features, and then brought them all together in an artful blend. From ultra-modern cities to mighty mountain ranges, from vast expanses of barren desert to lush and fertile oases, from captivating myths of gods to legendary creatures of Africa. Africa is a land bristling with too many stories, and at Zoom Africa, we bring those stories to life as videos, photos, animations, live streams, aerial shots, web design, and publications. Our cast of characters include non-profits, government, small businesses, corporates, religious organizations, lovebirds, personal brands, disruptors, and innovators. Africa is a feast of sights and sound, a celebration of the big, the bold, and the inspired. And to Zoom Africa is to bring an extraordinary world to your feet. When you zoom